music, theater, and visual arts. This video will help you see what elements of the new standards are the same, what's different, and how NAEA will support your use of the new standards. The new art standards have much in common with the 1994 standards. They still convey knowledge and skills, are based on sound philosophical foundations and lifelong goals, and include glossary. As with all national standards, these art standards are voluntary and are designed to fit well into local teaching and learning situations, guiding students to achieve at the highest levels. The 1994 standards were written before technological innovations and were print-based. The new standards recognize traditional and contemporary approaches to achieving artistic literacy in a digital visual age, and they are web-based in a dynamic virtual environment. The 1994 standards were clustered by grade bands, while the new performance standards are grade by grade, preschool through grade 8 with 3 proficiency levels for high school. The 1994 standards were organized uniquely for individual art forms. The new standards are organized across arts disciplines in the same fashion and include 4 artistic processes. 1, creating, 2, presenting for visual arts or producing for media arts, 3, responding, and 4, connecting. We believe the best experience for students is one that integrates all of the processes while building artistic skills and behaviors. The 1994 standards utilized content and achievement standards. The new standards utilize unifying anchor standards for all arts disciplines, allowing a clear pathway to the grade-by-grade performance standards. Support for student learning. The new standards are based on enduring understandings. Those understandings vital for the youngest child throughout his or her life as a learner. Art teachers will be able to adapt instruction as students develop their artistic skills, transferring knowledge well into adulthood. Enduring understandings answer the why art and why art education question for learners and stakeholders alike. Essential questions are provided as thought starters, supporting creative inquiry strategies for students. These essential questions require deep thought and reflection. The standards are written so teachers can adjust delivery for age-appropriate practice while the enduring understandings remain constant. The new standards also provide model cornerstone assessments at grades 2, 5, 8, and high school that illustrate benchmarked examples of how learning in art is authentically assessed along the way. The model cornerstone assessments share demonstrated growth in art, a key component in many teacher evaluation systems. The model cornerstone assessments illustrate how multiple creative outcomes are important assets to student learning in the arts. Wherever they may be, art educators can access and adapt benchmarked examples for use with their students. NAEA members can connect to arteducators.org to access examples within the Instructional Resources Gallery. Coming soon. Art, artifacts, and objects. Remember, art for all students, learning through creating, presenting, or producing, responding, and connecting. Artifacts for understanding communities, cultures, and contexts. Objects for experiencing spaces and places and things communicated through the designed world. Want to know more? It's all there for you in the NAEA professional community. Just ask NAEA. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for much more to come.
So, a lot of that is clearly specific to visual art, but when he talks about the artistic processes, those are the same as music. A lot of that is exactly the same. But sometimes, again, it's good to look at what the other disciplines are doing. So, now I'm stealing NAFME slides. So the new standards were teacher-developed, broad national input, and this is, by the way, most of these bullets here are the opposite of Common Core. Common Core was actually not teacher-developed. Common Core was actually not broad national input. They are not voluntary for most of the country. So these are different in that way. These were not federally funded. That's a key piece for people, especially in the red states who don't want anything from the federal government, but funded primarily by the field, as in your national association. Evaluation guides built in, but there's no high stakes testing. They focus on 3 simple things: creating, performing, responding. And Dennis in the video talks about connecting. Connecting is in there as well. And those are those things we want to orchestrate success. This is my slide reaffirming some of the things that are on the previous slide, but developed by the National Professional Arts Education Organizations, very little outside funding, but some help from College Board. I'll explain that in a minute. National Endowment for the Arts. 10 writers for each discipline. California had 1 writer in each of the 5 disciplines. No other state had such representation. So our one person from music was Armelin DeLeo. She is the president of the southeastern section of CMEA. She's with the California Arts Project. She's brilliant, and she was on this, and she spent countless hours helping develop these standards. California's teachers provided much of the public input during the development of the standards. We had the highest participation level. You would think, well, California, the biggest state, we should, but even like per capita, we had a very high level of input. So they rolled out nationally almost a year ago. In California, we can consider these standards a resource at this point in time. They're not adopted like I talked about earlier. We have the bill. So the new standards include philosophical foundations, lifelong goals, 3 or 4 artistic processes, creating, performing, responding, connecting, the enduring understandings and essential questions. These are out of the work of Jay McTighe and Grant Wiggins, which very well-known and very highly accepted educational practitioners. Their work on essential questions and enduring understandings is permeated the educational environment. So we picked up on that idea, and actually those are really good things when you see those in the standards. It's a good thing. So cornerstone assessments. So we have these assessments that are a part of the standards. This is not something we had before. We actually have some teachers in California that are using these on a pilot basis to see how it goes. These are not assessments that can be done in an hour by filling out a bubble test. They are very authentic. They take the students basically on a project, doing the curating, the performing, the responding, and the connecting. They take them through all of that. It's really more like a unit that would take, a month or more to get the student through. That's the assessment. So it's very authentic. There's connections to Common Core, 21st century skills, cross-arts connections, and then there's these opportunity to learn assumptions. Some of these things are on the NAFME website. The opportunity to learn is something you should know about. You might even want to write it down. Because, and I don't think the new ones have been released yet, but when you get to a school and you are teaching in the janitor's closet, or you don't have the right resources, curriculum, all those kinds of things, and you go into your principal and you start asking for stuff, and the principal says, you don't need that, you don't need that. And you're, 24, and they've been doing this for a long time, and so you feel like, well, I am the expert, I have a credential, I did all this work. This is where you can say, but the National Association of Music Education has these opportunity to learn standards. I'm not just basing this on something that I think that I should have, but I'm basing it on something that is delineated here on these opportunity to learn standards. So that talks about the kind of room that you should be in, the kinds of resources you should have for the different kinds of classes. I did not know that these existed until fairly recently. So they're very important that you know about that, because you might need to call upon those when you get, especially that first job. And a lot of you may end up in jobs where there has been music for decades. So there might be like nothing. So those are going to become very useful to you.
The state currently has those embedded. I remember that from when I was, we would do evaluations, and it said all those things, like the amount of storage you should have, the square footage you should have.
Yeah, that's really important stuff. So these national court standards, there are actually 5, because they've added this media arts thing. In California, that is probably going to not be one of the standards we adopt under VAPA. It's probably going to be a standard that we adopt under career technical education under the arts and media entertainment standards. So in California, we're probably going to have the 4 arts disciplines like we've had. That's just my guess. There are okay. So one of the things that the standards have in them, when you get to the website, because it's not a book, it's a site. The arts are a means to these 5 things. So when you're talking about why do we do music, that's why. You don't have to like make that up. It's art. It's there. All right. So here's the architecture. So we talked about the 5 different content areas, or 5 different disciplines. It's based on we just saw the philosophical foundations. It's about artistic literacy. Again, I'm saying the word literacy. Here are the artistic processes: creating, performing, responding, connecting. Presenting for visual arts, producing for media arts, but creating, performing, responding, connecting for music. In each of these artistic processes, there are anchor standards. And by the way, these artistic processes are the same for all 5 of the arts disciplines, 4 of the arts disciplines. These anchor standards are the same for visual art, dance, theater, for all of them. So and the anchor standards are also the same for kindergarten to 12th grade. They're the anchor. When I show you them, it'll make sense to you. You go, oh, I can see that. And then from those anchor standards, the more specific standards at each grade level emanate from. So if one says creative work of art, then what does that mean in kindergarten? What does that mean in 9th grade? What does that mean in 12th grade? That's where it all emanates out from that anchor. So we have these performance standards graded by grade. We go pre-K, that's new. We've only had K before. Pre-K to grade 8. And then in high school, we have proficient, accomplished, advanced. And actually in music, we have added, novice, and I think it's intermediate or something. With the recognition that in high school, we often have students show up who have had no music at all. So how could we hold them accountable after a year or 2 proficient when they've only had a year? So we hold them accountable to novice. That's not something we've had before. And it's been always a complaint about, well, how am I supposed to teach these standards when my kids have not had any background? I can't do that. I'm really teaching them to kindergarten level standards in 9th grade. So now we have this additional set. Novice in 9th grade should be more developmentally appropriate than kindergarten standards. So this is an improvement. In this advanced idea, think advanced placement. Here is where the College Board participation kind of loops in. They are looking, and when I say they, the College Board is looking at perhaps doing like AP tests for music, on not just music theory, but say trumpet. You made All-State, that kind of a level, you could get advanced placement credit, but not just the level of performance, but also your knowledge in creating, performing, responding, connecting. So that is something that's in the works. I don't know if it'll ever happen or when, but that's the idea behind this advanced standard. Not necessarily that there would be separate classes, because most high schools are not going to have to be able to offer a section full of kids at that level. Some might, but it's for those kids that are probably like you when you were in school, that you went above and beyond. You were, in probably more than one music class. You were the student director. You were running the clarinet choir. I mean, you were doing just like 500 things, and you're also maybe even taking a music class at community college at the same time. All those kinds of things would put you at kind of that advanced level. The accomplished level is the kid that is in high school music for 4 years, and what should they know after 4 years without doing necessarily anything extra? Okay, and then I talked about the cornerstone assessments. Moving on. So Here are the anchor standards here. Up here, these are the definitions of what creating, performing, responding, connecting mean. Those are definitions. And then down here, here's anchor standard 1 under creating, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2. And again, all of the grade by grade standards emanate off of that. So the anchor standard, first anchor standard for creating is generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work. We already saw that from that previous slide I showed you. So what does that mean in 8th grade in an ensemble class? You can find that for that particular anchor standard. And it's delineated out with more specificity, whatever. Okay, so that's what the anchor standards look like. Here is this, so for visual art, they have a set of standards for kindergarten on up, one set of visual art standards. In music, we separated those out, like I mentioned earlier. So for general music, we have pre-K through grade 8. Then we have a whole traditional emerging ensembles piece. Novice, intermediate, high school proficient, high school advanced, high school advanced. This novice piece could be grade 4 instrumental music pullout.
So BOC is band, orchestra, choir, I'm guessing.
Right, band, orchestra, choir. So intermediate could be grade 8. It could be grade 10 if it's a second year kid. So that's where, in emerging ensembles, that's steel drum, mariachi, ukulele, whatever, right? It's an ensemble. Then you got, actually it's not ukulele. That's under harmonizing instruments. And then you have the same levels. That's for guitar, etc. Technology is another whole set of standards in technology, but it's only in high school. And there's also a composition and theory set of standards, and it's only in high school. So in visual art, again, theater, dance, one set of standards for every kind of class you could possibly offer. In music, we have broken them out, and there's 5 different sets of standards. When you see them, this all makes more sense. Okay, so these are the 2 sites basically that you can find the standards, and I did not print these out. I'll go to the site in a minute and I'll show it to you. But there's a whole bunch of stuff still at this original site. This was the site that they used while they were developing them, and we would go and visit and see what was going on as they were being developed. And now this is where the actual standards are actually now located. And there's some other stuff here. The knowledge, skills, and dispositions. So this is the National Association's attempt at, so if you've got the national standards that are kind of at the 30,000 foot level, and our California standards are a little bit more knowledge and skills based, and maybe they're more like the 10,000 foot level, like specifically learn an 8th note, do these things. That's the National Association's attempt at bringing the big ideas down to a more concrete and specific level. And that's broken out by like ensemble or the different types of classes. So that's out there. I think that is still kind of a work in progress. And this is that opportunity to learn standards that I talked about earlier about your facilities and resources. So let me show you.
You may need to log in.
Looks like it's loading.
Nice.
Look at that.
Mine never does that.
You're welcome.
What is that? Huh?
If he's on Premiere, then you have to log out.
Mine doesn't. It does.
So this is what what it looks like. You can see the creating, performing, responding, connecting up there, and the anchor standards that I just talked about are right there. If you wanted to just print out a set of standards, you would go to this standards at a glance, and then you would choose. You can see all the things that I listed. That music is the K, general music, harmonizing instruments, etc. All these are there. And if you click on that, then this big chart shows up. I could click on that right now, but nothing's going to happen because it doesn't work in Safari. You need to be in Chrome or Firefox if you're a Mac person.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. I used to wonder why that didn't work.
Yeah, I did too.
Let's see, but I'm going to just, while we're in here, I'm going to show you this build your own handbook thing. So you can pick music, and I just want to do, let's say I just want to do traditional ensembles, and I just want high school, and I just want proficient, because this is going to be my, like my 9th grade band class. And I want the essential questions in engineering understandings. And what else do I want? Why is that not leaving? I think I have to, I don't know if I have to click all these or not. We're going to click all these. So I get all of the artistic processes. And then I click on this, and voila. Here is my own little handbook. So it's another way to look at the standards. So here's the introduction. Here is a description of what is there. And then if I go into creating, here are the actual standards. The enduring understanding is that creative ideas, concepts, and feelings that influence musicians' work emerge from a variety of sources. That is the enduring understanding. The essential question is, how do musicians generate creative ideas? Very simple, but can't answer in just one sentence kind of questions. And then here are the actual standards. So here the first one is, compose and improvise melodic and rhythmic ideas or motives that reflect characteristics of music or text studied in rehearsal. That's novice. So it goes high school novice, that goes from there. So that's how you get there. Any questions off the top of your head about, I've given you a lot of information. It might take some time to process, but any thoughts? Yes?
Well, when you said that they were working with College Board for a music class that was in theory or credit or something, how would that benefit the student that is going into college?
Well, I sort of see it in two ways. One, that when you're applying to a college and you are able to show that you're at that level, that would be a benefit to your application. Secondly, if the college was amenable to the idea, you could possibly start with already having some credit, as you may have done if you took AP biology, and you don't have to take AP biology when you're here.
Credit towards what exactly?
Towards whatever the test would be on. So that's a good question. Would it be credit for ensemble, credit for theory? It depends on what the test will be. Yeah. That's all to be worked out. And that, yeah, they might not figure that out, so they might not do it, that kind of thing. Okay.
So my understanding is it's going to be live and interactive, and people are going to be able to upload
These standards?
Mhm.
Yes.
Or there'll be someplace where that's going to be happening.
Yeah, I think that you can also find the standards on the NAPME site. And I think that that's where we'll find more of the music stuff. Oh, they've changed their...
She's in the band.
Yeah, he is. And Jung Ho's doing the orchestra. So I think there's going to be a lot more stuff. Here's the actual standards. Yeah, I don't think they have those.
I don't think it's going to be yet.
It's going to take a while. The idea, though, is that as it lives online, is that you would be able to go, I'm teaching general music in 5th grade. What does that standard look like? Click on a video. Oh, I get how I could teach that in 5th grade. So, again, more information out there, more resources. Yes?
So these core art standards, are these
aiming for more standalone, or is this something that is going to try and like be put into Common Core?
So these would be standalone content standards for visual performing arts, and these are already informed by Common Core. So when they were developed, they were looking at what Common Core looked like and making sure that those literacy pieces of Common Core informed these standards. So one way to look at it is that if you're teaching to the National Core Standards, you're already teaching the Common Core because it's already infused with Common Core. That's one way to look at it. And I think that's one thing that teachers like about it. By the way, when I presented these to teachers, my teachers in San Diego County, I didn't know how people were going to react. The music people were very excited. They liked it a lot. They said, this is actually what I'm doing. So, I thought that was positive. Yep.
Yeah, a question about, you mentioned, I think, and I'm not sure, maybe I didn't quite understand, but I think you said the national standards had more detail, pedagogical detail, than the California standards will have? Is that?
I think it's the other way around.
Oh, the other way around, okay.
There's more detailing in the California standards, and then the National Association, and I think I just passed
I
by
think you
that.
meant the current, like the ones, right? You meant like the current state standards.
The current state standards are more prescriptive.
Yeah.
The national standards are more conceptual. Yeah, I like to just think of it as altitude levels.
Right.
California standards are just kind of a lower altitude, more specific. So yeah, this developing knowledge, skills, dispositions, how can I build these into my lesson plan? I think these are more specific. Like if you were to open up instrumental ensemble novice, it actually gives you a little PDF. This is in my computer, so it'll actually show you the dispositions. So this is what you, so for performing jazz and a novice, you would need to have the ability to competently perform a 12-bar blues and swing style, blah, blah, blah. So it's much more ground level. So that's a good thing for the teachers that were looking at these standards up here and not really going, okay, I see that up there, but I don't see how that applies to what I'm actually doing day by day. This helps with that.
I think also when we were all voting on them, remember those of you in my class, we were I was a little freaked out, I know, because it was like I could see that a bad teacher could say they were doing these things. And so by giving us more depth to it, that helps make sure that is less likely to happen.
Right, right. Yes?
So the standards were even set up for, so these standards were even set, will they be added to the Common Core site as well, for the public?
No.
Or standards or not?
No. Common Core is what it is. It's Common Core. And Common Core is actually trademarked. And so it's entirely separate. And Common Core is really for English language arts and math. But within English language arts, there's this idea of literacy, and the literacy overlays onto other content. These standards are content standards for visual performing arts separately, but they were informed by Common Core. It's hard to get your head around. I hope I'm doing a good job of
The
explaining
idea that
it.
Common Core was happening was one of the reasons we all got together to make this happen.
Yes.
Because Common Core doesn't include us, except in that tiny little piece,
Right.
right? And they're designed so that they have the same structural layout, and so they align with the Common Core.
It was a good time for us to do this because Common Core has come out, changing English language arts and math a lot. Huge change. Meanwhile, new science standards were being developed. Next generation science standards have now been adopted by the state. So there's all these changes in standards. Meanwhile, we haven't done a national standards update in the arts for 20 years. It was time. So it's just this time that everything was being really looked at. And if we hadn't done this work on the national level, we really would have been kind of behind. times.
Or somebody would have done it for us,
Could have been done for us.
which is how it often happens
Yeah.
at the state level, right?
So we can convene actual educators, teachers, people in the profession to do the work. And they did it as volunteers. It's kind of crazy how much work they do. So, so we have a nice, strong thing to bring to the table. And these standards, these national standards are being looked at right now, at least 8 states for adoption. I think one state is maybe already adopted. Believe it or not, Arizona is like really close to it.
Really?
Yeah, but because Lynn Tuttle is their state VAPA person, and she was very involved with the development of these, so she's been very on top of things. Yeah. Yes?
So I think if the bill, hopefully when the bill passes for the new performing arts standards, visual performing arts standards, that gives more political clout and whatnot, what would be, I think, some of the next steps you think that would be tackled after that? What,
It's a great question. We have this guy named Carl Schaefer, who I just love to death. He's 85 or 88, who knows how old he is. He will freely tell you. I'm not like, breaking a secret or something, but he's an older guy who, I don't know how old your parents are. My dad is 89. And when they get to be that age, they will say whatever they feel like. And, I work for the county superintendent's schools, and I can't just go around saying whatever I feel like, because I could be fired. If I just said whatever. I have a lot of latitude, but when you're 80-something, it just doesn't matter to you what you say. And so he lives in San Bernardino. He used to be a music educator. He still does work for the county of San Bernardino. He still sets up their honor bands and stuff. He's still very involved. He's been making a lot of trips up to Sacramento, and he's been saying, if it says in the education code, which it does say in the education code, that grades K through 6, all of the visual and performing arts shall be taught. There shall be a course of study, it says, in music, theater, dance, visual art. Well, if it says that in the ed code for K6, and it says 712 that it should be all should be offered as an elective, that student should have the access to all 4. If it's not happening, then why is that allowed to happen? If it says that in the ed code, and we know of all these elementary schools all over the state that don't have these, that don't offer these things. And actually KPCC, which is public radio in LA, they have a reporter that has been digging around and kind of getting some of that data. It's like 80% of schools don't have that. So should someone go to jail? So he's just like...
I've been advocating a lawsuit for about 5 years.
Yeah. So
I think it's going to be the only way to...
So here's the reason that he's found out, is that California is a local control state. And so we don't have, at the state level, a VAPA policeman that goes around and says, you don't have music for those kids. You're going to the pokey, It doesn't exist. It's up to the local school board. But Carl's thing is, wait a second. Should that be something that's left to the local school board? Should that really be optional if it's in the state ed code? So that potentially could be a bill, is that the state has authority to make sure that that's something that happens. That's one idea. I've had an idea a long time ago of a student's right to an elective. That we lose so many kids in middle school. Let's say that they have access in elementary at some level to music, but they get to middle school, and because of the test and the implications of No Child Left Behind, blah 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 blah, they didn't score well. They're at basic or below basic, and the school is a program improvement school. It's a whole bunch of language, right? But basically, we have all these kids that have been required to have a second period of English support or math support or if they're English language learner or ELD, designated ELD class, they don't have room in their schedule for music. But what we know from data that I've seen is that that is not working for kids. It's just killing kids off. If they don't have any room in their schedule to be creative, and they're just getting remedial, they never catch up. So I would love to see at some point in time a bill, especially for middle school kids, that they have a right to take at least one class that they want to take. That would change, that'd be a huge change. I was just at a school 2 days ago, Vista Innovation Design Academy, where the principal is totally aware of this problem. So, and because the law right now says if the kid is at this level, they have to have that class. Until they run out of classes, they have to have these extra classes. So what he did is he changed their bell schedule to have an hour-and-a-half lunch. It's a 90-minute lunch. The kids don't know that it's a 90-minute lunch. For an hour of that lunch, they go to design something. Design Academy, it's a design class. And so during that hour, every kid has access to that class because it's actually lunch. They can't be forced into another remedial class because it's lunch. The kids don't know it's lunch. They go to these design classes, and the teachers at this particular school all have one of these classes. I talked to a teacher that is a math teacher. For her design class, she teaches architecture. The kids are making little designs of houses and stuff. Another one is, there's just all these ones that walked into a class and they were all designing like carnival rides of their own. I mean, they were figuring out, what it is they were going to do. And so, and what's great about this is costing them nothing in supplies because they just go out and get junk, basically. They tell families, bring in your cereal boxes.